I let those albums go once I seen I was getting 13 cents to every dollar. Once I really figured that I ain't promoting no label stuff I don't eat off of. My money come from my name and brand. The other day, Meek Mill was kicking some serious game and revealing some facts that most rappers in his position would be ashamed to put out in public. But he decided to help out many others who might be coming into the music game or already in it. Meek Mill was doing an Ask Me Q&A on his Twitter leading up to the release of his new mixtape Flamers 5, which was not going to be dropped on major streaming platforms for multiple reasons, one major one being he used beats from popular current songs. It's a classic type of mixtape. But when Meek sent this out, he wouldn't just stop at that statement. Keep in mind that Meek Mill is a veteran in the game, with over 10 years being one of the hottest rappers of the 2010s, consistent. So for him to be receiving 13 cents on the dollar is not incredibly low, but it is at least a couple cents lower than what it should be, and those add up when you're selling millions of records, which he has been. Meek would go on to give detail to his earnings in the music industry. Ask Meek, I made $11 million in 10 years from music, just music payments. I was shocked, mad, and didn't want to really rap for any label. Now I got a real point to prove to show you can survive without getting rapped. This sounds like a lot of money, but when you consider the amount of money that Meek Mill's music has generated, just in actual raw album and single sales, to them putting his stuff on streaming services after, it could be 10x the amount that he saw. It's understandable he would be upset, although one of the questions I would have for Meek Mill is if he was under a 360 contract, because they're the standard contracts now. But I'm not sure if they were when Meek Mill first signed, which means if he wasn't in a 360 contract, he would have been able to keep all the proceeds from his touring, merchandise, brand deals, and anything outside of the music sales or payments. The bad part of the deal nowadays is that's baked in. So not only are music sales still going up, but a lot of these artists are getting a piece of all of these other things outside of music taken from their deals. On a bad month, I make a M. A lot of people let me down when I got educated about my own business. And it wasn't like I'm not a learner. They mentally keep you faded from knowing. Don't give me a plaque. Give me the financial paper of how much the song I recorded for 20K made. 20 million. Not an award. I'm from the trenches. I don't want that stuff. I want an estate. I want my whole family tree to beat the ghetto. One day I asked how much Going Bad made. Just that song. They said 24 million. I was like, how much did I make? All I got was, LOL. I'm like, what the hell? I know all the financials to my other businesses. LOL. I signed out, lost all trust for that whole system. I asked Drake to do that song 3 days before my album came out. I think he did for free for me. We cooked it up. How the hell do I not know how much I made off a song that made that much? They gave me a plaque. Big mental trickery. There's a lot to break down here. One is that we finally got the earnings for a really big song. The last time we got this was several years ago for Lil Uzi Vert's hit EXO Tour Life, which they said generated a bit over 4 million, and Lil Uzi Vert would make a little bit over 900K-ish from it. That led people to say he was getting robbed, which I don't think was too bad of a split if those were the real numbers. We just got that from third-party sources. Uzi himself never spoke on it. Going Bad, however, is Meek's biggest song on streaming services, with nearly 1 billion streams on Spotify alone. And the fact that it generated $24 million means there are a lot of other means for collecting for a song that we don't see outside of streams, which has always been true, but we never got some figures to it until now. Plaques are something both producers and rappers alike are happy as accomplishments. They're a trophy, a measurable metric that you can physically hold and display for your hard work. Funny enough that the artists have to pay for them too, but the plaque is just a reminder of how much the song generated. What's a platinum plaque worth if you barely made anything from the actual song? I think the biggest crime here is that Meek Mill's deal hasn't been amended, if we're to believe everything he's saying to be true, which I'm going to do for the sake of this video. For the most part, we understand that the way the music industry operates is on advances given that must be paid back, then bigger advances given for the next album if the artist is doing well. Money's supposed to be made elsewhere. That's kind of the unwritten rule. You're even told this if you talk to a lawyer, which is somewhat counterintuitive, But that's the nature of the game. What makes me think would help people more is if Meek Mill would break down his other income sources right now. Because making $1 million a week is a lot of money. There are a lot of artists in the game that have some money but don't know what to do with it. And I'm not saying he breaks down everything, but that was the most interesting piece of information for me, that entire Meek Mill Q&A. How, where, and what is the breakdown of the money Meek Mill is making right now? It's a lot more than it was when he was the most poppin', which is ironic. But another thing is why fans don't really care to support a rapper going through it, like other genre fans support their artists. A lot of people were saying 11 million in 10 years? Man, that's more than we can dream of. So we wouldn't be complaining. And that's not the point. They would be complaining if they saw how much money they were generating and the spread between that and what they were paid in any job position, no matter how much money you were making. This just reminded me of when Taylor Swift was having an issue with her master recordings that were bought and owned by Scooter Braun, to which her fans raised hell for her, eventually leading to Taylor re-recording her old albums, putting them out, and her fans buying them and outselling the top artists releasing new music that same year. This is another level of dedication. I can't imagine that happening with a rapper. Just looking in the mirror, I'd probably think, nah, I'm good, man. I'm just going to listen to the old and first version that I like. Definitely not buying the new version. Good luck with that. Unless it's for maybe 1 to 5 rappers that I really, really respect and I feel like their music touched me past just surface level, oh, this song hits. And the reason for this, I don't think it's how big Taylor Swift is, which is very big. I think it has to do with the dynamic and relationship between fan and artist. Meek Mill, like many other rappers, show a life of luxury, of flexing, watches, diamond chains, Rolls Royces, private jets, mansions, penthouses, gorgeous women, finest dining, meeting the richest and most famous people, yet rapping about how you don't have this and telling you they'll take your girl from you. It breeds some resentment. Although to give credit to Meek Mill, he is one of those rappers who drops a lot of motivational music to try and uplift people to get like him, while also mixing in the flexing and deprecating music in there too. Taylor Swift, on the other hand, or hell, even a J. Cole, so we don't have people doing the whole genre versus genre, white artist versus black artist thing. If J. Cole or Kendrick Lamar were going through what Taylor Swift went through, I believe their fans would support them and buy the new versions of whatever albums they had to release. A quick history reference, in 2010, Lupe Fiasco had finished and was waiting to release his album Lasers, but fans told Atlantic Records was holding it back because they wanted a commercial hit single. For 6 months, there was nothing to come out, which led fans to create a petition online demanding that Atlantic Records release the album. It got over 16,000 signatures, with tons of coverage on hip-hop blogs. It went so far as to fans showing up, about 200 of them, so not a crazy amount, to the Atlantic Records office in Midtown Manhattan, protesting outside for them to release the album, to which Leor Cohen would come out with a boombox playing some music from said album. They forced his label eventually to allow him to release, or applied pressure, and he wasn't even one of the biggest artists on that record label. Perhaps one of the biggest rappers or most well-recognized rappers, but he wasn't doing blockbuster numbers. The one thing that's always been great for Meek Mill is he would release mixtapes, and we never saw him have problems when it came to releasing an album, since he was always poppin'. That's the real darkness. When an artist is falling off, not as hot as maybe they once were, unable to release music because the record label won't approve a release because they're not poppin', he or she is not getting paid for the music, and they're not popular enough to get deals or things outside of their music to subsist on, which is the case and has been the case for a lot of artists in the game recently, with TikTok hits being signed to 5-album deals, knowing they only want the single. And I think that's the most important thing that Meek Mill has unintentionally shown a light on, is artists that, if he is getting paid this much, imagine the artists that are generating far less but are barely getting any money, not allowed to release music, and have no deals outside of music.